relax the shoulders, and you can start by very gently, just very gently closing your eyes. And start to notice the breath coming in through the nostrils, going down through the lungs, all the way down to the diaphragm. At a length that's comfortable for you. Okay? Once your attention's established on the breath, start noticing sensations in the soles of your feet, feeling contact of feet with the floor. And imagining if the breath can travel there. Slowly working your way up to the ankles, around the calves and the shins. And the thighs. Just each time imagining if the breath can travel there. And the contact with the backside against the chair. Sensations around there. Using the breath as an anchor. Now focus around the waist area, often a reservoir for feelings of tension, which can be a trigger sometimes for anxiety. Or around the upper back and the upper body, around the shoulders. Into the arms, forearms, all the way down to the hands and the fingertips. And now transfer attention to around the neck and the back of the head. Scalp and the forehead, eventually the face. Notice now the effect of the breath on your facial expression. imagine if the whole body now can breathe. Notice how the body's interconnected. How your posture affects your verbal presentation, including how you communicate verbally. And now, very, very slowly, start to open your eyes and finish the practice. Okay, how did we find that? There's a lot of stuff that goes on internally that we sometimes miss, isn't there? Anyway, some other exercises that are included in mindfulness practice and are also introduced on the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course. Now, Asperger's syndrome, as I've said, is almost continual now, being a lifelong condition, and sometimes to a person with Asperger's syndrome, it can be perceived that it's permanent and that its effects are permanent. And although the effects of Asperger's syndrome are very likely to be present throughout your life, from time to time at different stages of your life, those effects might every so often change. And something that being present with the way you're affected by Asperger's syndrome I found helps me with is noticing the changeability of traits, including how obsessive compulsive tendencies might, for instance, change over time, where they become more excessive and sometimes less excessive throughout your life, and where they're subject to change, whether it's the change of a subject that obsessive compulsive tendencies are focused on, or how obsessive compulsive tendencies occur within you, and also triggers of obsessive compulsive tendencies that are present within you. And something that helps with this is sitting mindfulness practice, something which I did this morning before coming over here to give a talk, to notice different changes that go through the body, and also noticing different thoughts that arise and pass, and focusing in on the present moment. Something that it's very helpful to do is, whereas sometimes you can hold on to different thoughts, including fantasies and memories as they arise, both the pleasant ones and the unpleasant ones, and like I think most of us, I do have both of those, and they do occasionally come up in practice and during normal life. But now sometimes you might want to hold on to a pleasant memory or fantasy, or you might want to resist an unpleasant memory or an unpleasant fantasy, possibly including bad memories you've had of perhaps bullying at school. But sometimes that causes more stress the more you try to push it away. So it helps to notice, just allow it to arise and pass, because like the effects of Asperger's syndrome, they're not fixed nor permanent, and this enables you to have a lot more control over how you're affected by your thoughts. Because your thoughts and opinions aren't very often the way it actually is. Now, body language is something, as I've said, something many people with Asperger's syndrome experience a lot of difficulty with. Not just putting it across, but also on on the effect of their own verbal presentation when they're perhaps least aware, for instance, over or prolonged eye contact, or in some cases, lack of eye contact. And something that mindfulness practice teaches you is to see, or to feel rather, as the body within the body, how feelings and reservoirs of tension affect your external verbal presentation. I'm noticing how the body is interconnected, how feelings of tension, perhaps from a particular posture that you're sitting or standing in, can lead, which produces a lot of physical stress, can also lead to mental stress and as well, and this affects what you put out, both verbally and non-verbally. And something that helps you, that I found helped me gain an understanding of that, was the body scan. It's not an exercise that I'm going to offer today because there's not a lot of room for people to lie with their backs on the floor. But you are, of course, more than welcome to have a look into it. It's probably best practiced in your own time, in a place where you can be on your own. And then there are plenty of resources where you can find out how to do it very effectively. So lying on your back's a position that's not a position you assume most of the time in normal life. So you gain an appreciation of sensations throughout the body that are present, but you don't often notice them. And the more you can tune into such sensations that go on, sensations and feelings that go on throughout the body, the more present within the moment it enables you to be. And movement, and particularly coordinated movements, also something people on the autistic spectrum and also people with dyspraxia. I know a few people who, as well as being diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, are also diagnosed with dyspraxia, difficulties with motor skills, which, as you may well have seen in the work that you do, causes some problems when playing sports or games that involve a lot of motor coordination. And something that an understanding of the physical interconnection of the body and just through practice of experiencing different postures that are comfortable enough for you to assume, comfortable enough for your physical makeup to assume. So we're all different in physical size and shape, and we have different physical capabilities. So understanding from that can sometimes help gain some control over motor skills. Something that I've found helpful with that, and it's also from a fitness perspective very healthy, is some very simple, nothing too strenuous or excessive, very simple stretching skills, including some very, very basic yoga postures. And now I'm going to bring mindfulness into normal life, including where it's particularly useful in my current role as operational manager at Autism Works. So being able to acknowledge thoughts rather than being controlled by them to help me gain a lot more control over how I'm affected by Asperger's syndrome. And I can notice where I'm becoming too stuck in the past or too over-anxious about the future. And the practice also helps me to switch off from pressures and stresses that are present within my life. And most of us do have stresses and pressures in our lives caused by a number of factors, which can be particularly true if you're a parent of a child with autism, including very severe autism. I don't know whether that applies to anybody in here, but that's just one of a number of examples of where sources of stresses can come from. And sometimes our natural tendency might be to try to want it to go away or to avoid it, but stress is often present or intrinsic to our lives. And mindfulness helps you, just being present with stress helps you, rather than be controlled by stress and factors that cause stress, is to rather work with them. And that's something that I feel mindfulness practice has enabled me to gain more control over. And also to, after practice and from continued practice, to be able to see the present moment from a much more refreshed perspective. Something that from the little exercise I usually find myself able to do. Okay, a little bit all about how mindfulness helps with working situations and whatever your working role, where you can bring it to your role. So in my case, working for Autism Works is a new venture in the UK, at least, because it's a relatively new business model, if you like, that employs people on the autistic spectrum or positively actions, Asperger's syndrome, and the strengths and skills it brings. And it's something that we hope can be replicated elsewhere within the United Kingdom and internationally, and to help monitor the progress by being with each step of the company's development. Using mindfulness really helps me in this way. And previously, when changing jobs, before I worked at Autism Works, I worked as a clerical assistant in the local government sector. When changing jobs previously, I would experience a lot of anxiety over how I would fit in with new people, strange new people around me who I didn't know how long it would take and any unpleasantness that I might go through, not to mention any teething troubles I might have having to learn new skills in a new role. But continued mindfulness practices help me to be with that part of changing jobs, and also the changing nature of my role at Autism Works, going from establishing the company's operational procedures, including the autism Asperger friendly part of the operational procedures, particularly around recruitment, to things like the processing of administration, operational duties such as doing timesheets and, in some cases, processing invoices. So mindfulness helps me to learn from each stage of the company's development in that way. And it's also helped me to both anticipate and also accept change when and as it happens, with life being a continual moment, existing in a continual now, rather than as a whole stage of stages that are separate from each other. And just through knowing that routines and comfort zones are subject to change is a big relief to me. And it helps me to, rather than be constrained by